Thrand here.
Hi, this is Eldgrim.
And this is Barry Jacobsen joining you as a guest.
Yeah, we have Barry Jacobsen today. It's a great honor to have him. He's been on the program Deadliest Warrior. He was the associate producer. He actually represented the Spartan and many different warriors on there, and he was their technical advisor, historical advisor.
Right. Also, if I'm not mistaken, Barry, I think you've also done some work with the History Channel before they sold out. Am I right?
Before they sold out, yeah, started doing non-history as in current events.
Right.
And it's history if it's current events. And it's happening now, but it's not history.
Yeah.
Not to say anything, ice road truckers and stuff like that.
well,
that's historical.
I was one of the stunt coordinators on some of the episodes. I did some of the stunt work on Deadliest Warriors as well. But I was the historical advisor. I was the Spartan expert, of course, in the pilot episode, which was Ninja versus Spartan.
Oh, I noticed that. I actually saw, I think on IMDb, a picture of you as a Spartan and had not realized it was you. I mean, the actual saw the curly wig and the gear and the breastplate.
The reenactment scene.
And I was sorry that I didn't realize that was you at the time, because I was like, whoa, that was Barry Jacobsen. He actually...
And in the Back to Blood episode, which was the kind of the episode that linked the first season to the second season, it was Spartan versus Samurai. And there's one scene in the reenactments where I'm seen throwing a javelin at some targets with that long Spartan wig and the goatee.
Oh, that's where that came from.
Their upper lip.
Oh, that's interesting. You know, and today's a really special treat because we're actually talking about a new series on the History Channel, which is Vikings.
The Vikings, yes. Is it the Vikings or Vikings?
It's just Vikings.
Just Vikings. Okay. It's very. What's funny is it doesn't. The same company that did the Vikings with Ernest Borgnine and Kirk Douglas and Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, the same people that are helping with the History Channel to put this video out. And it was also had Ragnar Lothbrok in it.
Right, and so Ernest Borgnine was the aging Ragnar.
Yes, he was the aging Ragnar, and they were supposed to be the sons of Lothbrok, pretty much.
That's right. That's
and
right.
He dies.
His character, which is they changed his name, but it's basically supposed to be Ivar. They call him Einar, but he's actually Ivar.
Yeah, or Ivar, yeah, or how we pronounce it. Yeah, Ivar the Boneless.
Yeah.
Ivar the Boneless, famous Ivar.
Very controversial character.
Yeah, you know, I have to say that the History Channel is doing what they've been doing in recent history, and that's you know, making narratives out of historical, things that have happened historically. But I think that when they're taking this creative license and they're creating this narrative, they tend to kind of chop up pieces of history and kind of throw them in this alphabet soup and just kind of spell whatever. I don't know if they're exactly rewriting history. I know they're trying to take some creative license. But I think that a lot of history buffs are sort of injured by these things like Lindisfarne being not exactly...
Yes, I have to argue with people on a regular basis, and if Barry wants to say something about that, but people will get ideas from movies and they totally believe that's the way it was because that's what they saw, and seeing is believing. So now they preach history to you, and you're like, nope, not in the history books, not documented. There's nothing historically, you know, that says this took place except for this writer who embellished or rearranged it to make it more interesting in our modern day and age, to make people enjoy it more. You know.
Well, you keep in mind that the Viking sagas, where a lot of the information about these characters comes from, was actually written centuries later, and one can only wonder where the writers centuries later got their information. Probably word of mouth, probably bardic tradition. So the details, of course, are embellished, as all legends are. Ragnar, and he has his own saga, Ragnar's saga.
Yes. Ragnar
is also a
Lothbrok's
historical
saga.
character. He's both legendary and historical, and where the legend begins and ends and when the history takes over is hard to tell.
They're contradictory too, the different accounts of them. Like if you look at the written by Saxo Grammaticus, it was at the year 1200. This is like how many hundred years after the man
close
lived?
to 300.
Yeah, because he
ago.
couldn't have existed from what we understand before like 745 and 860 or 865. So the whole idea is, I mean, we believe he's somewhere in that range, the actual real Ragnar. But 865 seems to be right because that's his death. And if he didn't, if from what I understand, if he didn't die somewhere in 865, then when the sons of Lothbrok showed up, the great heathen army, something would be wrong. You know, I mean, because they wouldn't wait 25 years. Some people think he died in 840 or 845 or something. And if that was true, why would they wait 25 years to avenge his death? So, I mean, you've kind of got problems like that.
That's where it comes tricky, where we don't know whether the sagas and the legends, where they measure history. Now, some of the things we know Ragnar supposedly did was he raided Paris and captured, actually sacked the city.
Oh, yes, he did. It was Charles the Bald that was king, and he was the grandson of Charlemagne, believe it or not.
That's correct.
And a lot of people don't know this. I'd like to bring up is the Saxons, which are of the old Germanic tribes. He actually executed to Christianize them. He baptized them and then executed 4,500 Saxons. Most of them were unarmed and women and children. Now, to why Charlemagne did this, I'm not surely why he would do something like that, which would enrage other people. I'm not sure. But
well, I have the answer to that. Yeah. The answer to that is that Charlemagne had conquered the Saxons. And by the way, just for the audience,
yes, he did.
Real familiar. These are not the Saxons who live in England.
No.
These are Saxons of Saxony, which is the area of Germany south of Hamburg, south of Jutland, in fact.
And well, the word would have gotten back to the Scandinavians, and they worshipped about the same gods, and they were pagan and heathen as well. So they would have sat there and saw this as an attack on them personally. So Lindisfarne, there's a good chance, was a religious type action when they decided to do it, and that's why they were
sort of a violent protest against the.
It wasn't just because I want all your gold. I think it was more of a statement when the first Lindisfarne took place. I mean, that's what we get out of it. A lot of the historians from Norway believe the same
right,
thing.
but this brings us back to the show Vikings, and that's kind of the central point today. And that's that Lindisfarne in this show in season 1, in the first couple of episodes, is treated like it's this. Like England's this new land, this new experience, this new world, and that Lindisfarne they just kind of happen upon it, and it's the first time they're encountering these objects, these artifacts, and things like that.
Yeah, Barry was bringing that up the other day. You were saying that they knew about England.
Sure.
England, they knew about it. Yeah.
This is one of the things where they take license. I'm going to back up just a step here, what we were talking about earlier. The reason Charlemagne killed all those Saxons, by the way, is because he had conquered them, and then they revolted and slaughtered his garrison they left behind.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know all the details of that event.
That was the second invasion where he slaughtered all those people. But getting back to what you were just saying, the Saxons themselves and the Angles and the Utes had come from Scandinavia. They came from the Jutland Peninsula, thus the name of the Utes.
Correct.
And the Angles themselves came from northern part of Jutland, and possibly the Danschilds. And we talk about Anglo-Saxon invasions in the 6th century in Britain, the so-called Age of Arthur, which I write about. These include a lot of other Scandinavians that weren't exactly English or Saxon or Yiddish. There were probably Danes or maybe some Norse as well. They had known about England for a long time, for centuries. And by the way, the Saxons had sailed across the open sea in the 6th century and the 5th century. So the idea that Ragnar or any Viking in the very end of the 8th century discovered for the first time that there was a land in the West is ridiculous.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's one of the things I noticed. And to bring up something else on the ships, we're talking, they only have one ship in the show. Ragnar was the king of Denmark and Sweden. Denmark and Sweden.
According to the saga.
According to the saga. So if this was true, and he's the son of a king, he was the son of Sigurd the Ring. Not Sigurd Fafnir, the one out of the Delsunga saga, but his father. That he was a king too before him. So the point is, how would he have one ship, and why would some Jarl, which is they were saying he's an Earl, but why would some Jarl be telling him what to do or what to do with the ships? He had his own ships. In all the stories, this man had hundreds of ships. Like you said, the Charles the Bald incident, where he went to actually went there and on the Seine River, he went up the river to France, and that's when the two armies divided on each side of the shore, and he fought one side, and he captured 111 prisoners. He supposedly executed them in front of the others, and they fled. Well, Charles the Bald offered him, supposedly, in the story, 7,000 pounds of silver for him to leave him alone and let him keep all the loot that he had from looting Ruin, which I'm assuming the name sounds about right because it got looted so many times. To me, it sounds like Ruin. And anyway, if you look at the story, that's 120 ships they document and 5,000 men.
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound anything like them running around in one ship going to Lindisfarne.
Yeah, with a small raiding party. And
yeah, sorry to bring that back up. But
well, yeah,
the sagas don't sound anything like what you hear in this type.
But
of
I think it's interesting you bring that up because you have this small raiding party show up at this monastery, and there's nothing but monks there. Didn't Lindisfarne have some lazy guards that
they had some guards there? They wouldn't have been totally unguarded. From what I understand, they more than likely had people there to guard them. No one just assumed that no one would ever attack there. It was like a keep. I mean, it's not just this big open area with monks roaming around. It's a fortification. So yes, they had to actually get into the place and so on. That's one thing they showed in the episode. He goes up there and they're taking a little door off, and I'm assuming there was more to it than that.
Knocking the hinges out. Yeah, okay, I remember that. They're knocking the hinges out.
They're knocking the hinges off.
Like hinges.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is very...
If I can back up and add something to that, Michael Hirsch wrote the script for this. He's the same author that also wrote The Tudors, the TV series The Tudors. And Michael Hirsch is a very good storysmith, very good at writing stories. He's not a great historian, or if he is a great historian, he deliberately leaves out and manipulates history to make a better story, which is okay. That's part of the poetic license of being either a novelist or a filmmaker. But it's good that the audience knows that these things are not historically accurate. As an example, one of the things they get wrong in the second episode or the third episode is that they have Ragnar and his band of merry men arriving on the coast of England. This is supposed to be Northumbria, and they kill the king's sheriff, they call it, in a battle on the beach. And what this actually is referring to is something that took place before Lindisfarne by a couple years.
I think it was 787. But anyway, go on. 787 compared to 793. So that's way before one incident before the other one. Yeah.
And it was the King's Reeve, the King of Wessex down in Dorset. His reeve, which name is Beethoven, and he was the first victim of the Viking raids. So they got the incident right. They got the timing wrong and the order of things wrong. And of course, they're trying to make all this stuff relate to Ragnar somehow. Make Ragnar basically the guy who starts the entire Viking invasions of England.
And like you said, one was Danish and one was Norwegian, the two different groups. One they said was Norwegian, the one that happened in Dorset, and the other one was, we believe the raid on Lindisfarne most likely was from Denmark. So if you look at it, it was two different groups of Vikings more than likely, or explorers or seafarers, whatever you want to say them, raiders. I think they kind of did a little of everything. The Vikings, would go exploring, and they were merchants. And they also were running out of land. There wasn't enough land to go between everybody that was there, unless you had a lot of money to buy it from somebody, or riches. So they were going out to get riches to buy land in their own country, or finding a better place to be. The problem is everywhere they went, there was always conflict. Because you're taking somebody else's land if you go to England. Anywhere in England, there's a law that says that's his. Or people who claim it. Yes.
You
don't have to fight to claim it.
Vikings in the 6th century, they landed in long ships of their own, and they take the land from the Britons. And of course, that's again the Age of Arthur. So, the Saxons got basically what they sort of deserved if you're looking at it from the Welsh standpoint. The Welsh being the descendants of the Britons.
I want to go back to what you're saying, Barry, about about Hirsch and that sort of creative license. I have to say that despite the historical inaccuracies, I really enjoy the intrigue and how engaging the characters are. I have to say the show is really good, and I think that one of the things that it does for fans of historical reenactment and historical societies of any kind is that it gets people interested. Even if they don't know the exact facts, it kind of leads them in a direction that kind of gets them interested in something that interests us, And I think that it's a good thing, despite the flaws that it has.
I absolutely agree. It's a very entertaining show, and I look forward to every episode. So, yeah, that tells you something right there.
Oh, yeah. I'm enjoying it. We're not here to
bash it. Yeah.
We want everyone out there that are watching today with us and enjoying the conversation. We're not here to bash the program. We enjoy it. It shows the Vikings in a different light. It's not showing them as like in what was that movie Pathfinder? Where they look like something off a Boris or a Molly Hatchet drawing, and they were running around with horns on their ship and them and trying to exterminate every American, a Native American. And I swear I expected them to go exterminate someone. Exterminate.
Like the Daleks.
Yeah, I swear I was expecting it at any time, because they didn't even seem human. They're these big statured, tall giants just running around killing everything in sight. You couldn't even see the flesh. You know, they had covered over so much stuff.
And you notice they're all very dark, as opposed to being Norsemen, who are mostly red-haired or blonde.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. But it's great to see these representations now that are at least a little more palatable to
right, well, they make them human. They're people you could relate to, the characters.
And they're believably Scandinavian.
The thing I didn't like about the team type meeting they had a thing or a team with the Jarl. The Jarl is not the law speaker. He's never the law speaker. There have been law speakers there who knew the laws, and the laws were actually set by vote by the people. So
That's right.
The way laws were, Viking laws, I mean, let's say if you stole the wagon, there's rules where, let's say you took the wagon without permission. You had to take it over a certain distance, keep it over a certain amount of time, and you're responsible for any damages to it. But if you took it, let's say, more than 3 weeks, let's say, I'm not sure exactly what the law is, 3 weeks, 3 days, something, but you had to take it over that length of time and over a certain distance, or not bring it back for them to say you stole it. If you brought it back within that time, he couldn't take you to this meeting that they have usually annually or 2 times a year and have you face trial for it. But if there was a problem where you damaged it, then yes, he could do that and you had to pay for it. But no one wanted to be convicted of anything. So of course the laws were very lenient in what was allowed and not allowed. And even murder, if you had the money to pay for who you killed, depending on the circumstances, you could pay for it and walk away.
It was called weregild, or blood money.
Yes, so if the way they did it is they made it seem like if you committed murder and you passed 3 houses, you know, or it was considered murder if no one knew the account of the self-defense or whatever. And I've never heard that law that they use.
No, it's completely made up. And here's the thing, you mentioned weregild, which is true. You could actually pay a fine to the family and get out of any kind of murder. But if you were ultimately found responsible for disturbing the peace in any way, to the point where your neighbors couldn't tolerate you anymore,
Correct.
you were out.
Yes.
You were executed.
And that was worse than death. There was people who chose death over being outlawed because they were such a family-oriented group.
You were an outlaw. You were fair game to kill without blood money being paid.
Correct.
As example, in the old saga, there's a character by the name of I'll think in a second. His wife was Halvard Longlegs. Help me here. Gunnar of Litterend. And Gunnar of Litterend gets into some trouble with his neighbors because his wife, Halvard Longlegs, is constantly starting trouble. And there's lots of murders that go on between their servants back and forth. And eventually, he's not executed. They had the power to execute somebody. They would simply outlaw him, and then he was fair game to be killed by anyone without blood money being paid. And that's what happens. He refuses to leave Iceland. He retires back to his farm. And then his neighbors get together, and they attack his farm and kill him.
Correct. And the other thing is, the other option would be to flee the country, to leave, and never come back. So
Which is what he should have done.
You would either be killed, or you could not. What I'm saying, you would have to go off and never see your homeland or your family again. So that's why some people opted just to pick an execution, or in some of the Icelandic sagas, they bring up something called the walk, where it was kind of like a ritual suicide. To go, what happened? You killed yourself to basically let the people know that
you felt so strongly that you were innocent,
right,
that you were willing to take your own life.
So what they would do is supposedly take their they would cut their stomach, take their intestine out, hook it onto a tree branch, and walk around. I think it was either clockwise or counterclockwise. I don't remember everything properly, but until they died, wrapping their intestine around the tree.
That's very much like seppuku, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And the idea is you were basically acquitted of what you're accused of. They fulfilled their sentence of killing you, but your family line was not stained with whatever they said you did, if it was something so horrible. You know,
there was something they trial by combat where you could challenge your accuser to a holmgang, which you went out into a small island, usually in a river stream, and using little ones, you mark out an eric, like we do in the SCA, a circular fighting area. And there were certain rules. You had X amount of shields to use, for instance. A good example of holmgang is in the movie The 13th Warrior. You've seen one of the warriors fight an enemy in the holmgang. And that's how you can become acquitted if you're accused of any particular crime, by facing your accuser and fighting him.
Correct. Also, the holmgang is a long history, because originally, like you're saying, they went to an island. That's what it means, going to the island. It means the island wall, to go out to the island. And only one man leaves the island. And originally, we think that they just took boats out and just dropped these guys off. It was a free-for-all, like the Thunderdome or something, and they killed each other. And then somebody left. And then that way, if you tried to flee and swim away, the guy could cut you down if you tried to run from him. That was the idea, because you're trying to swim away. I mean, he tries to chase you, you're not going to get away in the water or somebody attack you. Then later century, as it kept going and going, it became a ritualistic style duel where you hear about them describing these 9 by 9 foot cloths on the ground, and if you stepped off, you were an ithering or a coward, you know, and you know what I'm saying, you lost. Yeah. And the other thing is, if one drop of blood hit the mat, we're talking about first blood dueling, that you lost unless you paid more money and continued. There's all kinds of rules. But basically, you paid silver for losing. And it was supposed to be the first blood to settle agreements and not kill each other. They used the sword 1 ell long, 3 shields, like you're saying, totally 3 shields. And the shields are probably made crappily, so because you took turns throwing blows. It was kind of like some of the later century duels where you flipped a coin, or whoever challenged you, they decided who went first, and you threw one blow, the other guy threw a blow, and vice versa. The problem what people don't get is there's such a long history of this dueling that you can't say that one was that way and one was this way, because it was so spread out over time. What Holmganga meant, it meant different things.
The definition changed over centuries.
Just to finish though, King Godfrey outlawed it because he was losing too many people, just like they did later century in let's say when you have the swashbuckling era, it finally got outlawed because too many good men were killing each other. It just,
right.
Yeah, and that's just the way it was. Because it wasn't just to first blood. People would purposely challenge a man. They would come and challenge somebody who has a lot of property, who has a lot of money. Because not only did you get his money and his property, you also got his debts.
So you got his responsibilities.
You didn't want to accidentally kill a peasant or a thrall. If you did something like that and did it in Holmganga, the law was you got what he had, so you got all of his debts if he owned something. This man was in debt. And it wouldn't be a thrall, I'm saying. But he'd be like somebody very destitute and poor, owing all this money to this guy. You didn't want to do that. You want to find somebody that was very rich, Riker, and then go out there, challenge him, and be an expert. There's people who purposely did this in King Wolf's time period. And they would kill somebody outright. They knew exactly what they were doing. I mean, they purposely orchestrated the whole thing to get this rich man to come out and fight them, and they'd kill him in one blow, and that was legal. That wasn't, if it happened, it happened. He died. So, and then they went by that old law, well, my right is, he's dead, I get his property. And there was people doing that, making a living doing it, so it was also a reason to go for it. No more, this is not happening, this is ridiculous. This is you understand.
Yeah, you used a word which I like, it's called mything, and it's very similar to nothing. Right. In Scandinavian society, like later European society, and back in the Middle Ages up until modern times practically, men of noble blood had a certain sense of honor, and they did not want to be thought of as a coward. That was the worst thing you could call somebody as a coward. That's why they fought duels, was to show that they were brave. And if you walked away from a duel, your reputation would be tarnished forever. The Vikings called it a nithing. If you did something that was despicable, something dishonorable, you would lose your reputation and be called a nothing, a nithing. And in fact, nithings went to the Viking version of hell, which was Niflheim, rather than do Valhalla, where the heroes went.
Yeah, it seems like you really have your Viking terminology down. I thought Thrand
was very, very well said.
Well, let me tell you guys, my very first war band I ever formed in the SCA was Thrand, the Thrand Vikings. That was 1979.
Wow.
And in fact, I got my Viking broadsword right here.
Oh, that's hip.
This is actually used in Deadliest Warrior. This was the Viking sword that we did all the testing on.
It's beautiful.
And you can see the blade is damascened. It's a very fine sword.
That is, you know, I have to say that's a beauty. I mean, seriously.
And it's Damascus too, as well.
It's a beautiful sword. It's my favorite of all my weapons. You see on the wall behind me my Spartan swords, one of which was used in Deadliest Warrior as well. As a Spartan sword.
There's Zyphos in here.
You know, it would be really nice if Vikings had gear like what you're showing us. Like that sword is an example of what I'd like to see. Another thing that I think we've all three discussed.
The weapons look good though. They're not
they do look good, but
the armor is missing.
Oh, no armor. They have no armor, no helms or anything. And we know this. Even if a man was poor, he would try to put something on his head. If you're fighting with a sword and shield, or axe and shield, spear and shield, the way they did in Skjaldborg, a shield wall, you're going to have a helmet normally, something, even if it was a bunch of leather and cloth or something. You know, you put something on your head. It's just common sense. Try to.
Well,
and they don't have one helmet. The armor they're wearing looks like if it's anything, it's leather. You know, like leather.
Well, yeah,
they did have brushed leather coats, and they had their gambeson was usually a bunch of layers of linen stitched together. You know,
of course, deer hide. They take hardened deer hide, as you see Thor the Hound, at the Battle of Stiklestad, where Olaf the Saint was killed. The man who killed him is wearing famously a deer hide that had been
right. A brush. It was a deer hide, but they believe it was many layers. You know, made like an Akaton or a gambeson, but put together. What's what we believe? You know, historically, that's what.
Yeah, or you know the buff coats that the Cavaliers wore in the Age of Cromwell. Same sort of thing. In fact, Gustavus Adolphus in the 30
We've done testing on that type of stuff, and it will turn an edge. Depending on how the edge hits it, it will not cut through it. You might get a broken bone underneath, but you're not going to. It's not going to slice you like it, you know, like a sword would and cut in and cause the blood loss. And in battle, I've noticed that's what they account the most. Wounds that sometimes wouldn't even kill the man. If you continually fight and the blood keeps pumping and flowing. And you know what I'm saying? That's what you're trying to avoid.
Would eventually be
you're trying to avoid any cut. You could get anything, because over time the blood loss would cause you to lose consciousness.
Or infection set in later and kill you after the battle.
For sure.
Right, but you know that's the thing. Like this character Floki or Loki, the shipbuilder.
Oh, that's very odd.
You know,
that's very odd character.
We're talking about this armor, right? And it seems like he's the only one that's wearing anything that even resembles like some kind of a leather armored vest. Did anybody notice that?
Yeah, it kind of does look that way.
Everybody else is wearing these tunics and these just regular Viking street clothes.
What about Ragnar Lothbrok? It means hairy breeches. Hairy breeches.
You never explain.
He has nothing. I didn't notice anything different about his clothing. You know, it seems like they would use something like that in the storyline. Because I mean, the theories are he either wore hides for armor. In one story, he actually wears actually they make it sound like it's an entire suit of armor, but he takes this hairy armor or like bear's hide or something, and he dips it in pitch and in sand, and he lets it dry, and that's to fight the dragon. And I believe that's out of the story where it's Thora, and he goes there. She has a great serpent that's around her keep. And what happened, it's a long story, I don't want to explain the whole thing, but she was given a little toy box with a serpent in it, a snake, or ormen is what they'd call it. It could be a dragon or a snake. And it kept growing until it encompassed the entire place. Well, in that story, Ragnar was a young man, and he went there and heard of this great beast. He didn't really want to marry the woman. He mostly just wanted to kill the beast to increase his fame. So what he did is he made the armor I was talking about, because dragon's blood's poisonous. He didn't want the blood on you. So he made this special armor to fight it, and he had a large spear made that was extremely heavy and long to impale it with. Well, supposedly he went there and impaled the beast, and it broke off in it and killed it, and then he left. And so the king was very happy because he'd offered money and his daughter for anyone who killed the beast. Well, he ran off and hid. He didn't want to know even. You know, he wanted his men to know and everybody knew, but he didn't want to marry the woman. Well, they come and find everybody and round them up and start going through everyone. And people are bringing spears from everywhere. Yep, this is my spear. See, it's broke off, just like Cinderella.
Only backwards.
And then he happens to look and see a young man who's very young standing over there with a piece of wood hanging out of his garb. Walks over, or his clothing actually, and he sees the broken piece and compares it and realizes it's the spear. So after that, Ragnar is very happy. He gets to marry Thora. He gets, I mean, in that story, he gets the money, of course, and the girl. But originally, he hadn't seen her. He didn't even care about that. All he cared about was killing this beast to show his fame.
The moral of the story is that he had an unusual set of armor, and they're not...
Right, they're not showing that. That's the point. Get back to the point. They don't have the armor.
An alternative version of how I got the name is very similar to what you said. It was that Thora was defended, where she was being housed
by snakes.
A moat with poisonous vipers.
That's the other one, correct.
He made these pants so they could walk through the moat with these hairy breeches that had been covered with pitch, and the pitch had been allowed to harden. And when the snakes bit, they would bite through these pants.
That sounds almost more believable.
Yeah, that sounds like modern snake chaps.
But that sounds more. This almost sounds more believable with that story then of course the giant serpent. But there are two different stories. You are correct.
Yeah. What's interesting is that they in the TV series they don't mention that at all, which is unfortunate. But I think the shield maiden that is his wife in the TV series.
That's from Saxo Grammaticus's account of Lagertha or Hladgert. We're not sure what her actual name was because they have more than one documentation of the name. But if it's a Norse name, I think it's Hladgert or Hladgert. You know.
Yeah, like Catherine Winnick, who, by the way, is an American actress, but when you listen to her talk, she's speaking with a Scandinavian accent.
Oh yeah, she's very, very beautiful. She looks the part, and she actually seems competent on the field. That's what I like.
Yeah, well, from what we've been able to see of her anyway.
There's a dialect coach that taught her to speak with a Scandinavian accent because she's American.
It's convincing.
Oh, her voice is definitely convincing, and her look, she looks Scandinavian.
Oh yeah, it's.
I was reading she has 2 black belts in 2 different martial arts. I don't know what, but they're saying that's why she's so good at the fight scenes, because she's actually trained, to fight.
But keep in mind, the Hollywood publicists make up a lot of stuff. You just can't take it out.
We don't know if it's true. I agree with you.
But it's very well cast. I think the character of Ragnar as a young man is excellent. The main character, the main actor, Gabriel Byrne plays the Jarl, who is the villain of the piece. And really all the characters, they come across as people who belong in the Viking Age. That's probably the best thing about the series, is that all the characters are very believable and very well realized. The downside is they're putting lots of stuff in the life of Ragnar, which, if you follow the timeline, which from Lindisfarne when he dies in the 860s, in Ielitscorp when he's captured, shipwrecked on the coast of Northumbria, he'd have to be 100 years old when he died.
Oh so, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely.
So
some people don't even they don't even know if Ragnar is the one who that raid on France. We think there might be somebody named Ragnall. That it's not even him. A lot of these different things he gets credit for, but Ragnall was famous for attacking churches and so on. If I'm not mistaken, Ragnall's the one who actually I'm not sure if it was Ragnall, the one that actually said he was a Christian king, even though he was Scandinavian and wanted burial and laid in a coffin. We had his men carry him in, and he jumped out of the coffin and attacked all the monks in the monastery. That's how he got in.
That story is told by 2 different characters as well. That story is also told by a character by the name of Hasting, who may or may not be the same Hasting who was defeated at England in the Reign of Alfred in the 880s near the Thames mouth. But in any case, this character Hasting supposedly invaded Luna, the island, the city of Luna, north of Rome. Thought he was sacking Rome. He sacked Luna. And during that tie-in raid, that was one of the stories told about him, how he got into these things.
He pretended he was dead, and they carried him in, said he wanted a Christian burial, and boom, popped. It's one of those stories.
It's also told about Harold Hardrada when he was a Varangian.
Harold, yes, Harold. You're correct, Harold.
Hardrada of course, was a Norwegian prince in exile, fighting with the Varangian Guard in Constantinople, and sent with a band of some 800 Varangians to Sicily to help reconquer down and for the Byzantine Emperor. And that was the story told about him, as he also did the same thing. Only in that one, he jumps out of the coffin, just as the wagon carrying the coffin is underneath the portcullis, the gateway of this fortress, the city. And broadsword in hand and holds the gate while his men rush up and capture the gate.
Oh, so it makes it even more spectacular.
Yes.
So the point with the story, it's such a good idea and such a good story, you see it over and over again in the sagas. Just like, what is the one where they took the birds and they captured them and put little burning embers on their feet, so then they fly into the town? If I'm not mistaken, that one's told more than once too, from different characters. The same.
Sure. A good story can be transported across a lot of different imprints.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what History Channel and Hirsch and these guys on Vikings are doing, is they're kind of translating these sagas into sort of a contemporary tale. I think we see
like
that.
Like the haircuts.
Yeah, exactly. We see it in the haircuts. The costumes, though, I have to say, are a little drab.
They don't look like
Vikings like to peacock. I think they like bright
colors. They had colors. They traded with the Middle East. I mean, they went to Istanbul.
So they put eye makeup on all blue. They like shades of blue under their eyes and over their eyes.
Yeah.
Well, let's say when they were trading with the Middle East, they went in there. They traded. They were merchants. They weren't there raiding on them. They were there in that big city, and they were merchants. So they're like everybody else.
That's right.
And they wanted silk. Silk was very valuable. They wanted stuff like that. They wanted textiles. They wanted stuff they didn't have in their country. Rare spices.
Even
this
rare
stuff
dye
would bring
colors.
money. That's why you see like the little idol of Buddha that they actually have from I believe somewhere in India.
Yeah.
But they got it through that trade. They probably didn't make it there to get it from, but they got it in their trade. And the thing was, it was valuable because it was a rare antiquity.
Yeah, but I think it's important to note that, you know, calling somebody a Viking back then in the 9th century probably would have been kind of insulting. That's like calling every English person a pirate.
Means like a fjord raider. It means somebody in the fjord that pops up. And then to Vik, to go a Vik or a Vik means, that's what it means. It means to go on a trip and just go traveling. So no one knows exactly why we use the term Viking now. They didn't call themselves that.
You know, I look at them more like Marco Polo. You know, they were those early explorers, those guys that went out and did the trade in far away lands.
Yeah, they'd have been, what I'm saying, they would have been whatever they were. They wouldn't have been a Viking. No. They'd be Jarl so-and-so of whoever.
If you read some of the sagas, like for instance, Rolf Kraka's saga, one of the first things a king does when he establishes his border is he eliminates all the Vikings who are raiding their own lands. Vikings would raid other Scandinavian settlements more readily than anywhere else. When our wall border broke down back in Poland, we saw a lot of Viking activity. And when there was a strong king, the Viking activity, or say pirating activity, went down. Now, somebody said that's very interesting, and I want to expand upon, is Norsemen, Scandinavians, not Norsemen, but Scandinavians in general, were traders first and foremost. They'd go out and trade, but if it came to a place where it was just easy to take as opposed to trade, they would. Or if they came to your ship, met their ship at sea, and they thought they were stronger than you were, they just take what they wanted. So it might be whatever you need to be. He could be a trader, he could be a pirate,
merchant,
an opportunist. He was a gross opportunist.
Yeah,
correct. The only thing is they do have certain laws where they say you're not allowed to attack unarmed merchant ships. But this changes if the guys all are armed and everyone has weapons. You can attack that ship because it's just, if it's unarmed you can't, or an unarmed caravan of merchants. They have laws that say you're not supposed to attack them. But of course they weren't in their country either. They have laws that say you're not supposed to attack unarmed women and children or peasants like thralls. But usually, why would you have to? If you walk in there and everybody's armed and you said we need food for our men, even if you're in another country, the peasants are not going to argue with you. If they're not armed and stuff, they're not going to look at this large force of men. They're going to go, oh, well, we have extra food right over here as long as you don't kill us. Pretty much that's what's going to happen. So if you look, a lot of times they weren't even attacking these small villages and stuff. They were just going and taking what they wanted. They didn't have to go in and kill and burn the place. They could use that as a way station while they're going to wage war against a monastery or a keep or something if they were against that king. So also they were very big into hospitality. If you would go into their country, they would fight over whose house you got to stay at if you were a guest. I mean, let's say if you went there as a merchant or something, there's people who have documented that back in that day, even in the Viking Age. They would fight over who, I mean, literally have a fight over who gets to have you in their home and who gets to give you food and drink and hospitality and all that kind of thing. So we get a lot of our early things like, let's say, like our chivalry that we see with the knights and so on. We get a lot of that from the Normans and from the Vikings because of that hospitality. If you show up in another man's castle or keep and you're an enemy at war at the time, but you show up there as a friend, they would let you stay there. You could actually stay there and eat and so on if you needed a place to stay. And you were somebody else's, you were not a peasant or something, but I'm saying if you were one of the royal line, where you could go stay there. It's kind of crazy. And then they'd move on and later they'd be warring with each other.
So something to keep in mind was that in Scandinavian society back in the Dark Ages, there was no such thing as peasants. You think about it later in medieval Europe, where there's a class distinction between the warrior and the peasant. Every Viking landowner was a bondi, and he owned land, he owned weapons, he fought when he needed to fight. And in fact, the Viking raids often were led by noblemen. They were just a group of bondi that got together, built a ship, and they plant their crops in the spring. They go off to sea, raid during the summer. They come back and have a harvest, often with a whole bunch of captives who became thralls, land for them. Right. So it was thralls, which were mostly captives, step up was only or peasants, which were freemen, warriors.
Correct.
And then there was the upper class warriors who served the nobles, the jarls. These were part of the bodyguard for the noble. Very small cadre of elite warriors, and they're herdsmen, or huscarls in England, they're known as herdsmen.
Huscarls are a lot like knights in some way.
I
I mean, the way to look at a huscarl serving a jarl is a lot like a knight or something. He's the house carl. He's state.
Well, one of the problems that I also saw with the TV series was that they show the Earl as being in the model of a tyrant, an oppressive tyrant, with all the military power in his own hands. That wasn't the way it was in Viking society. Scandinavian society was made up of free peasants, which even the word peasant is misleading. They're more like colonial America, where every man was armed, every man was a militiaman. They're all warriors. The average Viking crew was just these members of the peasantry, which are called the bondi. And whenever a earl or king became too overweening, too powerful, they often rose up against him and overthrew him because they had military power in their hands. It was an armed society, and as we all know, an armed society is a free society. So that was one of the things in the TV series I didn't like. There's a lot to like in this, but that was one of the things I thought was apparent.
But I think that's one thing that I think we're all being encouraged to not like is the Earl himself. I think that's going to make it easier for us as the season progresses. I think Ragnar is going to take a chance on killing him himself. I think we're going to be a lot more satisfied with that because he's such a bad Earl or such a bad leader. And I think this is a really good spot to leave off for us today, guys. This has been.
I just wanted to add one thing that they always, in all these type of stories, just to add in the sagas, they have the bad guy take liberties and do things that are not their traditional ways. They'll have him rape people, take people's wives against their will, take people's daughters that they don't want to marry, and stuff like. They have him do stuff that's really not kosher in their society. It's not something that their laws allow or whatever, but they do it because they're so powerful. So I think that that's what they're doing with him, like you're saying. But like, they're leading it up to make sure that when Ragnar kills him, it's justified in all the viewers' eyes. Ragnar did what needed to be done.
Right.
But our problem, I think, me and Barry have, are he wouldn't be able to get away with that from the very beginning. The first 2 or 3 things, he killed a blacksmith. That's such a valuable commodity, a real blacksmith. That if you killed him, everybody in the town, I mean, everybody would uprise against you.
Well, yeah, and
they wouldn't know why you killed him.
I think we're going to see.
Maybe punish him, but not kill him. I'm sorry, it's a blacksmith.
I really think we're going to see a lot more of the Jarl's evil come out in episode 4 and on into the season. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I'm looking forward to some future interviews with you, Barry. This has been insightful. It's been informative. And I think our fans are really going to benefit from your wisdom today. So
I'm a big fan of Barry Jacobsen. I just want to say that.
Yeah, I know. We've been fans of you
stuff
since.
On the History Channel, and everything you did on Deadliest Warrior was excellent. Everything that you presented I mean, you know what I'm saying. Total hit.
Well, thanks, man. I just want to throw that right at you guys. I'm a great fan of your videos, and I thought the testing you did while we were doing Deadliest Warrior was in many cases better than the testing we were doing. And I point that out to the other producers and say, this is what we need to be doing, guys. Get a real expert in there to test it, and Thrand would have been the guy. Hey,
if they would have asked us, we would have gladly came there for another episode or something. If they did something on the Vikings or they did something on anything that they wanted, just have us there. We would have done it if they would ask us. I know that. But.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. Well, we appreciate that.
And maybe one day, like I said, I know that you're a reenactor as well. We can be on the field together, stand side by side. I would love to be your shield brother and stand in the wall with you.
I'd be proud to have both you guys. And by the way, anybody watching this can look me up on Deadliest Blogger. That's my military history blog. And over on my Facebook, I have a military history page there. Thrand's a member, and we have a lot of interesting conversation.
Oh, that's very excellent.
Yes, I've been keeping up with that. It's definitely cut and thrust. Very
I post there as well, and I do read your Deadliest Blogger as well. A lot of political things as well on there, so it's a good.
It's a good balance of the political and the military history. Love it, great stuff, Barry.
And aren't you a feature on Cantu Talk as well?
Yes, in fact, we're doing an episode on Silvio Canto's show, which is a blog talk radio. We're doing an episode this week on Thursday, featuring the War of the Roses. As you may know, Richard III's body was recently found.
Oh,
and so
right
we
on.
talked about, Richard III and the War of Roses.
Oh, that'll be something. That's a one of those can't miss type things.
Yeah,
listen to
for
it.
sure. Yeah, we're
And
we're
everybody can
check
access this online, correct? All you do is go online.
That's right.
Find
Silvio
Cantu Talk.
Canto, C-A-N-T-O, Silvio Canto Show. And you can find him on Facebook, and you can find him online, and look in and listen to us.
We're friends with him as well on Facebook.
That's right. Yes. So anybody can probably find him through any of our pages, I'm sure.
And I might
independently.
Might add that Barry's also an admin over at our page. We have our Will of Remembrance production page, and we post different stuff about history as well and stuff. So if anybody wants to come by there,
Viking stuff. If you're a fan of Vikings,
that's on Facebook.
Yes.
All right. Well, Barry, again, thank you so much for joining us today, man. It's been a treat to have you on with us. And to our fans, we'd like to thank you for joining us today as well. And stay tuned for more from our YouTube channel. Farewell.
Margo.